The wind moved slowly across the dry grass, carrying the smell of dust, old wood, and something forgotten. The ranch stood alone in the distance like a tired memory that the world had abandoned long ago. Its paint had peeled away, the porch sagged like old bones, and the fences leaned as if they were too exhausted to stand anymore. Most people in town called it the dead ranch. They said nothing had lived there in years, not hope, not dreams, not even luck. Yet that morning, a man stood in the field staring at it. His name was Daniel Hayes, a former Navy SEAL who had spent most of his life surviving the worst places on Earth. War zones, deserts, jungles, oceans, Daniel had faced them all. But nothing had prepared him for the silence of this place. Beside him sat his loyal German shepherd, Rex, calm but alert, his sharp eyes scanning the empty land as if he could sense stories hidden beneath the soil. Daniel had inherited this ranch from an uncle he barely knew. When the letter arrived weeks earlier, people laughed. Not politely. Not quietly. They laughed openly. The town believed Daniel had received nothing but a worthless pile of land, an abandoned ranch that had slowly died over decades. Even the real estate agents refused to touch it. The soil was poor, the buildings were collapsing, and the nearest town was miles away. To them, it was a joke. But Daniel didn't laugh. Before we continue this emotional story, take a moment to support the channel. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us that hope can appear in the darkest places, please like this video, share it with someone who needs inspiration, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps these stories reach more hearts. Daniel stepped forward, the dry grass crunching beneath his boots. Rex followed closely, his ears twitching with every distant sound. The ranch house looked even worse up close. Broken windows stared like hollow eyes, and the front door creaked as Daniel pushed it open. Dust filled the air like a forgotten fog. Inside, everything looked frozen in time. Old furniture sat untouched. Photographs still hung crooked on the walls. A cracked clock rested on the fireplace mantel, its hands stopped decades ago. Daniel slowly walked through the rooms, his mind trying to piece together the life that once existed here. His uncle, Arthur Hayes, had been known in town as a strange man. Quiet. Private. Some people called him stubborn. Others said he had secrets. But secrets meant nothing to Daniel. All he saw was decay. Over the next few days, the town continued its quiet amusement. Whenever Daniel drove into town for supplies, people whispered. Some shook their heads with pity. Others smirked openly. A decorated Navy SEAL, reduced to inheriting a ghost ranch. But Daniel had faced worse than whispers. He began cleaning. The work was exhausting. The roof leaked, the well barely worked, and the barn looked like it might collapse during the next strong wind. Yet Daniel woke before sunrise every morning and worked until darkness swallowed the fields. Rex never left his side. Sometimes the dog wandered the land, sniffing around the fences or exploring the empty pastures. German shepherds were trained for instincts, tracking, detecting, sensing things humans missed. At first, Daniel thought Rex was simply adjusting to the new place. But then something strange happened. On the fourth day, Rex refused to leave a patch of land behind the old barn. The dog scratched at the ground, circling the same spot repeatedly. His tail was stiff, his nose pressed deep into the dirt. Daniel sighed. Probably a rabbit, he muttered to himself. Still, Rex wouldn't stop. Finally, Daniel grabbed a shovel. The soil was surprisingly soft. After a few minutes of digging, the metal shovel struck something solid with a dull clang. Daniel froze. He brushed away dirt carefully and uncovered an old metal box. Rust covered its surface, but the lid opened with effort. Inside were stacks of old documents wrapped in plastic, small envelopes, and something else that made Daniel's heart stop for a moment. Cash. Bundles of old bills. Not a few $100s. Thousands. Daniel sat back in shock, staring at the box while Rex watched calmly, his tongue hanging slightly as if he already knew something important had just happened. Daniel drove into town that evening with the box locked in his truck. When the bank manager counted the money, the room fell silent. $35,000. No one laughed that day. But that was only the beginning. Over the next week, Rex kept finding places to dig. Behind the barn. Near the fence line. Under a broken oak tree. Each time, Daniel uncovered another metal box. Each box held something different. Cash. Old gold coins. Property documents. Strange maps. Sometimes letters written by Arthur Hayes himself. At night, Daniel sat at the old wooden table reading those letters carefully. The more he read, the more the mystery deepened. Arthur Hayes had spent years hiding things around the ranch. But not randomly. There were clues. Patterns. Coordinates. It was almost like a treasure hunt designed for someone patient enough to follow it. And Rex seemed determined to solve it. One cold morning, Rex ran nearly half a mile across the field before stopping beside an old collapsed fence. The dog began digging furiously, barking with excitement. Daniel followed, heart pounding. When the shovel struck metal again, Daniel felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. Inside that box were documents that changed everything. Land deeds. Lots of them. Dozens. Each deed belonged to small parcels of land surrounding the ranch. Arthur Hayes had quietly purchased neighboring properties over 40 years. Small pieces at a time. Pieces no one in town had ever paid attention to. Daniel spent the next 2 days visiting the county records office. The clerk stared at the documents with growing disbelief. By the end of the afternoon, the truth was undeniable. Arthur Hayes had slowly accumulated over 200 acres of land. 200. The so-called dead ranch was actually one of the largest properties in the entire county. The town's laughter faded quickly. But the real secret hadn't been discovered yet. Rex found it 3 weeks later. It happened near the northern ridge of the property where the soil turned rocky and uneven. Few people had ever walked there because it looked useless for farming. Rex barked wildly. Daniel followed and noticed something unusual in the dirt, dark streaks running through the soil like shadows. He knelt and touched it. Oil. The discovery triggered a geological survey. 2 months later, trucks rolled onto the ranch carrying drilling equipment. The experts confirmed what Arthur Hayes had known decades earlier. The land contained a small but valuable natural oil reserve. Not enough to create a massive industrial field, but more than enough to transform the ranch's future. News traveled fast. The same people who once mocked Daniel now spoke about him with respect. Some even congratulated him in town as if they had supported him from the beginning. Daniel didn't respond with anger. He simply nodded politely. Because deep down, he knew the truth. The real hero wasn't him. It was Rex. The dog who had refused to give up digging. The dog who had uncovered the hidden legacy of a quiet old man. Months passed. The ranch slowly came back to life. The house was repaired, the barn rebuilt, and the fences straightened again. Green fields began replacing the dry grass. But Daniel chose something unexpected. Instead of becoming wealthy and leaving, he built something meaningful. He created a rehabilitation ranch for injured veterans and rescue dogs. Men and women who returned from war with invisible wounds now came to the ranch to heal. They worked the land, trained rescued dogs, and found purpose again. Many of those dogs had once been abandoned. Just like the ranch. Just like many of the veterans. And something beautiful happened. The broken helped the broken. And together, they healed. Rex grew older over the years, but he remained the heart of the ranch. Visitors often smiled when they heard the story of the dog who discovered the secrets hidden beneath the land. But Daniel always corrected them. Rex hadn't discovered treasure. He had discovered hope. Before we reach the end of this story, I want to ask you something special. If this story touched your heart even a little, please comment the word hope below. It helps us know these stories are reaching people who believe kindness still matters. Years later, the ranch became known across the region not as the Dead Ranch, but as Hayes Haven. A place where people rebuilt their lives. Where forgotten dogs found families. Where pain slowly turned into peace. And sometimes, on quiet evenings, Daniel would sit on the porch watching the sunset stretch across the wide open fields. Rex would lie beside him, older now but still proud. The wind moved across the grass again. But it no longer carried silence. It carried life. If this story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you that second chances can appear in the most unexpected places, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that restore faith in humanity. Because sometimes, the things people laugh at become the very miracles that change everything.